Hi Las Cruces, you're watching What's Next, and I'm your host, Cassandra Galban. And once again, we're sitting down with Gregory Z. Smith, one of your 2019 candidates for the mayor of Las Cruces on the Know Your Candidates Forum. Hi, Greg.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Who knows what time of day
it is? Good evening.
It's a full-time job. So, last time that we sat down and spoke to each other, we were talking about your involvement in the community and how all of your experience and how you're on the district council, and now you're running for mayor, and you've also been involved on tons of other boards. One of them was the Animal Service Center of the Mesilla Valley.
Correct.
So was there anything that really got you motivated, and what got you started in that?
Well, we actually serve on a number of things. A lot of times people will watch the city council and think that we simply sit down on those Monday afternoons and that's what we do. And the reality, of course, is we have to be prepared for those meetings, but we also serve on these other boards, commissions, and committees. And this board, I was actually appointed to this one by the mayor. He does the appointing to most of our boards and committees and things, and he simply put me on the same ones that my predecessor was on. I would handle that a little differently, but this was one of one of several that my predecessor was on for District 2. The Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley does very important work. It's not just the animal shelter, it is also where people can take their pets for help with medical things.
And this is one of your pets?
and Hugo actually came to us from the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley. A good friend of ours, Gregory, has been volunteering there a lot. She found Hugo there and decided that he would be a good pet for my mother-in-law. And so her father's name was Hugo Breach. She named him Hugo and brought him to my mother-in-law, and he found my suitcase. You can see one of my ties there, actually a couple of them. But I was unpacking it at some point, and he found that, climbed in there, and made a little nest. But Hugo is quite the character. He's also an escape artist, so we've been very fortunate. The number of times that the neighbors have found him and brought him home, he hasn't had to go out to the Animal Services Center more than once or twice since he's been with Mary Kay. But
anyway. One of the issues that does, obviously dogs get out and they get caught. So yeah. It's a good thing that he's one of the more fortunate ones. He gets to come home. But you had mentioned earlier and informed me that over 10,000 animals a year aren't that lucky. What are you guys doing to address this issue?
Well, there are over 10,000 animals a year come into the Animal Services Center, and that is just an unfortunate number for a city the size, a community the size that we have in Doña Ana County, and a city our size. We have unusual numbers, and so those numbers come in every year, and we're trying to get in front of it by helping people understand the importance of spaying and neutering their pets, but also looking for ways that we can become a no-kill shelter. We have to maintain a regular status of 90% or more live release rate to get the no-kill status, and we've hit that number a few times in the last year, and that's great. We just want to hit it more consistently, so it's very complicated. I do want to mention Rocky here.
Is another rescue of yours?
Well, another rescue. She was a more direct rescue. She actually showed up. Allison was traveling one time, and Rocky was under her car in another part of New Mexico. Allison took her into the vet. She had a collar. She was a kitten, a broken leg. She was in bad shape, and Allison was hoping that somebody would show up and claim her. Nobody ever did, so Rocky, she got her name because she was so tough. Rocky came home with Allison. She's actually about 20 years old now, and so she's doing really well. She's a tortoiseshell calico, or calico tortoiseshell. Allison always knows exactly how to say that, but very unique, wonderful cat, so she's also part of our household. But she then managed to avoid going to an animal shelter or the Animal Services Center, but she did end up in our home that way. But so many animals, as you say, don't get that opportunity, and then it really is heartbreaking. We have a situation currently where we have so many animals at the Animal Services Center that we're having to increase the number of euthanized animals, hopefully for a very short period, but simply to make sure that we're not overcrowding, because then diseases spread more quickly. The animals, get aggressive with each other, those kinds of things. And so we're working on a new animal services center to accommodate both the heavier load of animals that we have, but also more current, up-to-date, cleanable, and accessible. The current Animal Services Center is only accessible if you get off east of where it's located,
yeah,
and then come west to it. With the one that we're building with the GEO bond that just got passed, and we're hoping to see open towards the end of 2021, that we will be seeing that one actually able to be accessed from Rinconada. So you could still come from the east the way you have been to the current facility, or you could actually get off on Rinconada and access it there.
So a whole new center.
A whole new center. It will actually then be focused on finding homes for the animals, and the current one, which we've just added on to. Yeah. As the chair of the facilities committee, I was very pleased that we were able to do this, because it expands our capabilities. But then this will become the medical center for the Animal Services Center, right there adjacent to where the adoption and the drop-off and those kinds of things will be happening.
And so this will have, updated and improved facilities.
Absolutely.
For the pets. Well,
yeah.
Pets. All right. So do you have...
We have another dog.
Yeah, we saw another picture of a dog that I want to talk about because it was so cute.
There she is. That's Sadie. Sadie had been with two families before she came to us, and she's quite old for a Weimaraner. She's currently about 14 years old. We don't know her age exactly, but she's been with us for 9 years, and she is a real sweetheart, and we love her dearly. She is quite the character when she's modeling my campaign T-shirts. But we knew someone who had her and wanted to know if we would take her, because they just were not able to keep her any longer. So we took her on a trial basis and knew within about 20 minutes. It's sort of like a foster situation. We knew within about 20 minutes she was staying with us. I'd had a Weimaraner when I was a young kid. I was about 11 when we had another Weimaraner. I mentioned him briefly last week when we were talking about going hunting with my dad, and that was Baron. But this is Sadie, and she is definitely another character, but a calmer part of our lives.
Well, speaking about, you just mentioned the foster situation. What are programs so the board that you're on for the Animal Service Center, what are some programs that you have or information for people to get more involved, what already exists, to help these animals?
Well, we have an incredible community here in Las Cruces, people who volunteer for all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And so we have an incredible number of volunteers at the Animal Services Center. Some of them walk the dogs and cats, maybe not walking the cats so much, but grooming them, helping with feeding, helping with cleanup, helping with all kinds of things that happen right there at the shelter. But we also have people who take the animals and foster them in their homes. And many people like Carol Grady do this on a very regular basis. They're frequently, coming in, taking as many as they can, fostering them in their homes. Others are taking one or two and sometimes deciding that they're going to keep them and adopt them. Mm-hmm. And so we have that going on in our community, and it really is. It's a very heartwarming situation that we have so many people who do that. We can always use more. So calling the Animal Services Center or dropping by and letting them know you'd like to volunteer, they can find a way to put your services to work. We have I didn't even catch the number of volunteer hours this time at our most recent meeting, but it's always just an exceptional number, but there's always more that can be done. Mm-hmm. There's just a great deal of need there. And of course, we keep looking out to the future as to how we can reduce the numbers of animals coming in. And once they've gotten there, we've tried very innovative ways to get the live release rate increased. And of course, the most obvious one is people coming in and adopting. And since the new addition was added, that number has gone up. More people have been coming in. They see it more easily from the roadway. It's not surrounded by construction fences and things like that discourage people. But the other thing is that we have a rescue transport program that actually, that's probably the greatest increase in getting the animals out to other areas, is simply that, we interestingly, the two dogs that most frequently come in are pit bull mixes and breeds and Chihuahuas. We have a very, very hard time finding new homes for the pit bulls. But the Chihuahuas are very popular in other parts of the country. And of course, they're relatively easy to transport. So we get those on planes, we get them in vans, and they go to other parts of the country where people then take them on, and of course other breeds as well. But that is one of the sad things, is that we have the highest number of pit bull mixes being bred or breeding in our area, but that's the least popular breed as far as people adopting. So it's really important to make sure that people get their pets spayed and neutered, especially if it's a breed like the pit bull breed, that where people just are not adopting that breed. So those are probably our highest number of animals that have to be euthanized, and that's just a really sad state of affairs.
Oh, it is. It just hurts my heart. I kind of want to jump into, how about function? Because you said that the mayor appointed you to a board after you were on the district council.
City council, yes.
So how do you see those, how do those function together? And like you said, what would you like to see different?
Well, one of the things that we've been talking about recently, I mean, starting with how we get appointed to the boards, I really would like to, in committees and councils. There's some things, like I serve on the campus, the NMSU, campus planning committee as an ex officio member, and that goes with District 2. Serving on the Citizens Design Review Committee for the University Avenue area, that goes with District 2. There are some things that go with those districts that are just sort of automatically, that makes sense, it goes with that. I've also served on the Town and Gown Commission with NMSU. It naturally goes with the District 2 counselor. But there are other things, such as Animal Services Board, the Solid Waste Authority, the road, variety of other things that we do, where somebody might have a special interest or somebody might have a special experience or background, where those things might more naturally work with us asking, the mayor asking, okay, who would like to serve on these things, or who feels that he or she has a special propensity, ability to serve on those things. And that's one thing I would do very differently. Not that we won't end up occasionally with people who need to be appointed and then do their best job even though it wasn't their first choice, but so that we can actually get a better match with these different committees and boards. Beyond that, we've talked about having the Animal Services Center come under the city. Currently, it's a shared responsibility between the city and the county, and so we both pay a little over $1 million a year to keep it going, and we both have county commission members and city council members serving on the board to help make the decisions. And sometimes that ends up being very political. There are a lot of people very involved in their pets, care greatly about cats, or care greatly about dogs, or care greatly about birds. And they then have very strong feelings. They want to be sure we know them. And as an elected official, our obligation is always in the end to make the best decision for our community, to base all of that on what is best for the community overall. But sometimes when those political pieces come in with elected officials, that can sometimes push things in certain directions more than perhaps optimally they should. So that's one of the reasons that we have talked about possibly bringing the Animal Services Center then under the city. City actually is the landlord, owns the property that it's on, and is the fiscal agent for the Animal Services Center. So we're already operating a lot of those things. And the city has a relationship with the county where detainees at the detention center, the county runs the detention center, but the city then pays money for a certain number of detainees from the city to be housed at the detention center. So a similar kind of arrangement could be made with the county. But that is a decision that, given that we're both under a memorandum of or joint powers agreement with the Animal Services Center. We both have to agree that that's what we want to do. So that's part of the discussion. But moving forward, I look forward to us, one, getting the education piece out there, helping people understand how important it is to take care of their animals and make sure that they're spayed and neutered, and then help people understand that there are wonderful animals waiting to be adopted at the Animal Services Center. So those are all things that can help us get that live release rate up and reduce the number of animals having to be euthanized and get us to the point of where we can actually authentically say we're a no-kill shelter.
Absolutely, and I think it would be great to get the politics out of that, because so many little critters, they don't have a voice in politics and they don't get to vote. I think so, and it's more important to have information. So thank you for the education, because that's what really is going to help make those changes. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back for more with What's Next with Gregory Z. Smith.
There you go.
So great, you do all these different gears to the gland.
Okay.
Nice.
Guys, not all.
Granite is here. We'll come to you to customize your kitchen and bathroom with beautiful countertops and cabinets. Find out more at horizongranite.com. Call us at 575-650-3180.
Horizon Granite is here.
It's here.
Make yourself a beautiful home.
Hi, I'm Ray Bamberg with Here on Earth. I would like to invite you for a free hearing evaluation to our office. We've been here in southern New Mexico for 34 years helping people hear better.
Welcome back to What's Next. I'm your host, Cassandra Galban, and we are sitting down with Gregory Z. Smith, 2019 candidate for Mayor of Las Cruces. All right, so we were just talking about your experience on the board with the Animal Service Center of the Mesilla Valley. You're also involved with MRVDA, or the Mesilla Valley Regional Dispatch Authority.
That's correct.
Go ahead and share your experience on that board.
Certainly. Well, that one is what often people refer to as the 911 call center. And back when I was first on that board, it was in an old, previously a savings and loan building not too far from the old county courthouse. And it would get flooded, and there were people just sort of falling all over each other. And we knew that we needed to get into a new 911 call center, a new regional dispatch authority building. And so we were raising the money, we were working on the design and all of that, and we were having, different disagreements actually about where it should be located and those kinds of things. And we finally, I was the president at that point, and I just said, not president, chair of that board, and I just said, you know what, I think we need to go with this particular location. I mean, I could have voted and slowed things down, but I went ahead and went with a majority vote on that particular board so that we could go ahead and get this location going and get it up, because it was just like every time we had a major flood, we were worried about water getting in there. Every time that we were dealing with situations at the Regional Dispatch Authority, people were just crowded in there. There were morale issues. There were all kinds of things going on that needed to be addressed. So this is a purpose-designed building, state-of-the-art.
It looked nice.
It's thank you. It's the first one of its kind in the whole state of New Mexico, and really does a great job for that service. I was at a thing earlier this week. It was an interagency interoperability training exercise, and they were bringing in people from the Border Patrol, from the State Police, from Sunland Park, from Las Cruces Public Schools, from NMSU, Las Cruces, of course, and various other communities in the county to work together to make sure all of their devices could communicate with each other properly, because something that we in general don't think about very often is the fact that oftentimes people will pay for a system. This city will get it, or this, the county will get it, or something like that. They'll get this system in place, and it'll sound like it has all the bells and whistles and does everything that it needs, and sounds like it's up to date and current, but it actually doesn't coordinate that well with the other systems in the area. Mm-hmm. And so with the need to be able to communicate, we want to be sure that it's called interoperability, but that interoperability then is something that everybody can talk to each other and get to the people they need to. As you may have noticed from the photograph, of course, there's also all kinds of antennas and equipment up on the roof. It's very high tech, but it also communicates in a number of different ways in a number of different directions. And so I didn't get to be the architect for that, but I did get to give some input on the design and how that was executed as a board member and as the chair at that particular time. And I'm very pleased with how it turned out, and how it's helping our community be safe.
Oh yeah, so your experience in like architecture and design, did that help like with all of the forethought and all of the necessities and equipment for this building?
Well, some of the equipment and the necessities for the building are very specific to that particular endeavor, and I don't have as much background in that, but just from the standpoint of certain design pieces that need to happen with both this and the Animal Services Center. I get to look at the plans and make comments and sometimes see things and understand what the architects are talking about. I can't step in and tell them, they have to change everything, but I do have sometimes comments on this and with the campus planning committee and the university design review committee, where I get to make comments that really do tie in with my background in architecture. Sometimes I also get to make comments or make suggestions based on my background in education. So those are things that really do come into play on these specific committees and sometimes in the council itself. But you look at how many different agencies, oftentimes we don't think about it, which are working together and working through the MRVDA, the Mesilla Valley Regional Dispatch Authority. It really is much more than we generally think about. And so I'm very pleased that we're where we are, there in a facility that shines the way it does, but also helps us be that much safer in our community.
Absolutely. So what are some of those challenges as far as public safety go? Are there any challenges that are presented there? How do you want to address those?
Well, we don't get into a lot of the specifics about how the different agencies operate, but we do have members of the Las Cruces Police and the Las Cruces Fire Department. The city manager typically is a board member as well, along with one of the counselors. Same kind of representation from other communities in Doña Ana County and the county itself. And so it's a little different fee structure than what we have with the Animal Services Center, but nonetheless, we're all working together and looking at what happens when such and such happened, and then they called the dispatch authority, and how could we have done that better, or what will help us, or what do we need money for to help us do that job better. So day-to-day operations we aren't into as much, but from the standpoint of how the different organizations work together, from the standpoint of how we find money to stay on top of the most current, useful type of equipment and software. We've had various discussions about 911 texting and other kinds of ways that people can communicate with the 911 call center. Used to be everybody did their landline. We used to have a higher number of people calling in on their landlines, 911 calls. Now, and so there were dedicated receiver call takers who were with the landlines, and now that has shifted to more of the calls come in through cell phones. Something else that we had to do for the city was we were getting an awful lot of false alarms on people's alarm systems, whether it was a fire alarm or a police need type of thing. And so those false alarms were sending our first responders out on a highly increased rate to calls that weren't bona fide, they weren't real needs. So we instituted in the city of Las Cruces a fine for a certain number of false alarms, and what happened was we reduced those numbers greatly so that we wouldn't have to have as many of our first responders out in the field where they weren't needed, but actually ready to go to situations where they were needed. So that's been a big help, and so that's one of the things that we did there, but it ended up having to come to the city as a vote before the city council.
That's so much excellent work that you've done on just two of multitudes of committees that you have been a part of.
Don't ask me how many, because I'll probably skip a couple, and then somebody will be offended that I didn't remember that committee.
Exactly. And so many new buildings and new plans and renovations of the already existing ones. Moving forward, they sound like you have so many great ideas. We spoke about getting involved with the Animal Service Center, but are there any other areas that you'd like to address with constituents of how they can get involved? And what would you like to say to them directly? Like which committees need, more community involvement?
Well, thank you. Yes, certainly the Animal Services Center is probably the area with greatest need from the standpoint of what people can do there. In Las Cruces, we have an excellent, it's not part of the city, but the city has the land. Once again, the city is the landlord for Community of Hope. And we have an amazing community of people here who help with El Caldito, who help with Los Peregrinos, the Community of Hope, Camp Hope, Jardín de los Niños, the Health Services Center there. So there are a lot of things that people can do volunteering there with those different agencies. And certainly just about any other committee that we do have members of the public who come in either specifically for a topic, and they do that oftentimes at our city council meetings, but they can also then check with our various committees as far as ways that they could be involved there. So please reach out to us. This really is very much an opportunity in so many ways for people to participate in our community.
Thank you so much, Greg, for letting everybody know that. Thank you again for joining me and letting me ask you all my questions.
Have a lovely evening, and I appreciate you asking the great questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to What's Next with Gregory Z. Smith. Stay tuned on the Know Your Candidates Forum.
I'm Gregory Z. Smith, candidate for mayor of Las Cruces, and I approve this message. Sylvia Comunez, Treasurer.